Hi, it's me, Lou. I'm back again to share the next part of my story with you. Firstly, here's a quick recap. So, in the last episode, I started to think maybe Mark wasn't so bad after a crazy night playing poker with him in Vegas. But then I slept in and missed my flight back to New York, and that strict guy left without me. All alone in Vegas, I had a chance to spend time with Jeremy, the singer. He sent someone to take me to his show, then we could fly back to New York in his private jet. I thought it was just a lift. But then, horror of horrors, an article came out saying that Jeremy was having an affair with me. Jeremy's girlfriend Naomi burst into my room, and you won't believe what happened next. She started screaming at me, saying, "Lou, how dare you? You're a total skank, running around having an affair with my boyfriend?" I opened my mouth to tell her it was all a big misunderstanding, but she kept shouting at me saying I was nothing but a fake, who pretended to be all sweet and innocent, but underneath I was a total man-eater. Her words hurt me so much, and I tried to explain, but she just kept screaming at me. "If I see you go anywhere near Jeremy again, you won't know what's hit you. Stay away from my man." I was almost in tears by this point, and I said, "Naomi, please, I didn't do anything. The paparazzi got it all wrong. We didn't even hang out." But Naomi wouldn't hear it. As she walked out of my room, I said, "I really didn't do anything, and you should confront your boyfriend about the article before rudely humiliating me like that." She shouted one last thing, "You just wait," then slammed my door as she left, and I heard her kicking the wall outside in rage. I knew that she wouldn't leave me alone, but all I could do was just try my best to avoid troubles as much. Maybe I should have just moved home? Ever since I'd moved into Plutus Heights, it had been non-stop drama, and it just got worse. Every time Naomi saw me in our shared space, she'd storm away like I was a disease or something. One time I walked into the kitchen, she grimaced at my face and said, "Ew," and walked out. It was so awkward, but no one else seemed to notice or even care. They were probably used to Naomi acting like this. I got tired of it though, and avoided her as much as I could. That was until our investment club teamed up with her fashion club to work together on a fundraising project. We were putting on a fashion show to get investment for a fashion business project, and I was the host of the show, while Naomi was managing the modeling team and arranging everything that happened backstage. We rehearsed at our college, and Naomi always went out of her way to put down my ideas, and even got the models to do things wrong just to humiliate me. For example, I would announce designer A's outfit coming down the catwalk as a stylish fishtail dress, and she'd get the model who was wearing designer B's fluffy dress to walk out instead. Then on stage, I'd have to quickly fix what I'd said. It was so childish of her, and made me look so unprofessional. The fashion show was going to be held at an epic beach resort, with the catwalk leading down to the ocean. And as the models walked up and down, the sun would be setting right behind them. It was going to be amazing, as long as Naomi didn't ruin it for me. I heard the resort belonged to Will's family. Even though they had no interest in fashion, they'd agreed to sponsor the event as a way to promote their luxury car brand. So Will was there to help us. When the day rolled around, Mark was there as the investment representative. Jeremy was invited to perform, and of course, David was there for the hot models. So all the guys in our mansion were present at the event. Even though none of them were really there to specifically support me, I felt less nervous seeing some familiar faces. It was getting close to showtime, and I was working with the stage lighting team when suddenly someone bumped into me. I couldn't believe it. It was Naomi, and her glass of red wine went all over my brand new white dress. She pretended it had been an accident, but I knew exactly what she was up to. I wanted to scream, but luckily, I had a spare outfit in my bungalow, so I ran back there to change quickly. While I was changing, I heard someone outside my door. I hurried over to check who it was and was disgusted to see Naomi rushing away. I tried to open the door to ask what she was doing, and that's when I realized what she'd done. She'd locked me in. I managed to look out the window and see a huge metal padlock and chain on the door. I was stuck, and it was all Naomi's fault. How could she do this to me? I ran to get my phone to call for help, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I must have left it with the scripts near the stage, trying to run back as fast as I could. And when I tried to use the landline, the line was dead. Someone had cut it. Naomi was trying to ruin my life. My bungalow was far away from the main part of the resort, so no matter how loud I screamed, no one would hear me. I watched as the sun went down and knew it was time for the show to start. All the effort I'd put in over the past few weeks was for nothing. Everyone would be so angry at me. They'd been working nonstop for weeks, and I'd ruined everything. This was exactly what Naomi wanted. I ran around my room trying to find another way out, but even the windows were locked. It was hopeless. Time counted and kept counting, but there was nothing I could do. I threw myself onto my bed and cried myself to sleep. I don't know how long I drifted off for, but the next moment, I heard someone roaring, and the next second, the sound of the metal padlock fell on the floor and woke me up. I ran to see who it was, but there was no one there. Only the broken lock and chain were lying on the ground. Someone had saved me, but who? And that's when I noticed something glowing on the ground. It was some kind of cufflink, and it had an M carved into it. It must have belonged to whoever had saved me. I was still so depressed about missing the show that I didn't even give it much thought. I picked it up and ran to the stage where the show had taken place. By this point, it was after midnight, and everyone was packing up and cleaning. One of my teammates from the investment club saw me and gave me an angry look. I ran over to explain to him that I'd got locked in my room, but I didn't tell him Naomi had done it because I didn't want to screw things up with Plutus Heights. Then my teammate told me it had all worked out okay in the end because Naomi had stepped in and taken my place as host, and that she'd done an amazing job. Of course, this was her plan all along. She'd seriously taken her jealousy too far this time. The next morning, I drove home early and immediately went to Naomi's room. I was so angry and wanted to give her a piece of my mind, but I suddenly stopped in my tracks when I found her staring at her phone, crying her eyes out. Turns out, the night before, Jeremy had been caught with a model from Naomi's team, and he still hadn't come home or been in touch with her. Even though she'd ruined everything for me, I still felt sorry for her. I couldn't help it. She looked so sad. It seems like I'm not your only rival, huh? I sat down next to her. She glared at me with teary eyes and said, "I'm not sorry for what I did. You deserve it." I tried to stay calm. If you listened to my explanation and was conscious enough to confront your man about what happened, instead of just believing anything they said, you'd realize the situation wasn't that bad. There was nothing between me and Jeremy, and maybe this case is the same. She looked up at me and wiped her tears, and then she started apologizing for everything. She even gave me my phone back and said she'd been so immature. I just laughed and took my phone and said, "Let's put all of this behind us. It was just a big misunderstanding. Friends?" She looked surprised, but smiled and said, "Friends." After that, Naomi and I became closer. It seemed like she was really lonely. She avoided talking about Jeremy at first, but I knew she couldn't stop thinking of him. It'd been a week since the scandal with Jeremy and the model. They'd been avoiding each other. One day, she told me that she decided to host a home party as an excuse to create some time and space to have a frank talk with him. Such a girl. She always has her clever way out of trouble. So she messaged us all in our Plutus Heights WhatsApp chat to arrange a party. None of the boys seemed very excited about it. However, our house has a rule that no matter what, we can't miss a home party that is hosted by one of us. So they all had to join. Will was in Arkansas at his family's private ranch to do his annual hunting, so he invited us all there instead. I couldn't believe Will was a hunter. He didn't seem like the type at all. So, well, I guess you can't judge people on how they look. Anyway, Jeremy said that we could get a lift on his private jet, but Mark said he'd fly by himself as he had a business trip nearby. I wasn't so keen to try hunting. It looked seriously dangerous, and I had no idea how to use a gun. So all of us newbies just watched from the observatory tower and looked through the binoculars to see what Will was up to. It was actually pretty cool. Will was riding a horse and was chasing a wild deer. I'd never seen anything like it. When I said, "Wow guys, how cool is Will?" no one replied to me. Seemed I was the only one interested in it. Aaliyah and David were busy taking photos, and Naomi and Jeremy were nowhere to be seen. They must have gone off somewhere private to chat. Well, I think it was time for them to end the silence in their relationship. After a while, I went back to Will's parents' mansion and found a quiet corner to sit and have a cup of tea and watch the sunset. It felt so nice to have a moment to myself, and I was so busy staring out the window admiring the stunning sky that I didn't even notice someone had come and sat next to me. It was Will, and he turned to me and said, "Lou, you're not cut out for the lavish city life, are you? I think you're much more suited to this simple farm girl life. You look happier here than you do back at Plutus Heights." I was shocked. He said this in a cold kind of tone, so I couldn't figure out if he was complimenting me or criticizing me. Did he think I was some simpleton? Not cool enough for the big city life? I asked him, "What do you mean? Are you mocking me?" But we were interrupted by a buzzing welcome sound outside. Will ignored what I'd asked and just said, "Mark's here." Then he got up and went outside to join everyone. We were having a barbecue that night, and the staff at Will's mansion had just finished preparing everything. Jeremy and Naomi looked all cozy, so they'd clearly made up. I went over to join them, and that's when I heard everyone asking what had happened to Mark. He had this big wound on his hand, but he just said that he'd been careless and hurt himself after the fashion show after breaking something. Breaking something? After the fashion show? Oh my god, it all made sense now. It was Mark who had saved me. He'd broken the lock and accidentally hurt his hand. And the cufflink with the M for Mark. I couldn't believe it. But why had he saved me and left without saying a word?